Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are diving into the world of Solana, SOL. You know that blockchain platform that's really, well, shaken things up since it launched back in 2020?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's become a pretty major player, getting a lot of attention for like pushing the boundaries on speed and costs.
Exactly. And to help us kind of get our heads around where it is now, we're looking at this specific analysis document. It's called Solana. Strategic Analysis, Projections, and Growth Perspectives in the Blockchain Ecosystem 2025-2026.
Right, and that report gives us a really detailed look. It covers the tech, the ecosystem growing around it, the price action.
Yeah, and forecasts, challenges, strategy, the whole picture, basically. So our mission here is to unpack that document for you, pull out the key insights,
Make sense of what it's telling us about Solana today.
and why should you care? Well, this analysis puts Solana right up there, challenging giants like Ethereum, especially for building like the next wave of dApps, DeFi, NFTs, Web3.
It's definitely aiming high.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The document looks at the technical stuff first, which really makes sense. That's Solana's engine room, where it tries to be different.
Yeah, the analysis kicks off highlighting the core tech.
Mm.
And the first thing it points to is that unique consensus mechanism. It uses proof of stake, POS, which is familiar,
Sure.
but combines it with proof of history, POH, which is less common.
Right, proof of history. And the doc makes it really clear this POH is like fundamental to Solana's speed, isn't it?
Totally. Instead of all the nodes constantly arguing about the exact time and order of everything.
Yeah, which slows things down.
Exactly. POH creates this verifiable sequence, like a historical timestamped record, before they even try to reach consensus.
Ah, okay. So it pre-sorts things.
Sort of, yeah. And that lets validators process transactions way more efficiently
Right.
and, crucially, in parallel.
Right, parallel processing. That explains the big numbers.
It does. And according to this analysis, that's how you get those impressive performance metrics. It cites the capability for up to 65,000 transactions per second, TPS.
65,000 TTS? I mean, wow, that number just leaps out, especially when you compare it to, other layer ones.
It's a big headline number for sure. And tied to that, you get super fast block times around 400 milliseconds, the doc says.
400 milliseconds, wow.
Plus the transaction cost. It's incredibly low. We're talking less than $0.01 sub-penny.
Okay, and that low cost is huge, right?
Yeah.
The document emphasizes that for like actual usability and making dApps cheap enough for everyone to use.
Absolutely. Makes things economically viable. And for any developers listening, the analysis notes the main languages are Rust and C.
Could tell.
So you put all that together, the POH plus POS, the high TPS, fast blocks, super low costs, Rust and C. The document basically says, this is why Solana is seen as scalable, low cost, and oriented towards next generation decentralized applications.
So that technical foundation is presented as its core advantage.
Makes sense.
Okay, so moving on from that tech base, that speed and low cost, let's look at what's actually being built on Solana, the ecosystem. The analysis says it's, well, growing fast.
Yeah, it gives a sense of scale.
Yeah.
It mentions over 2,000 active projects running on Solana right now.
2,000, that's a lot of builders choosing it. And the document, it points to specific areas where Solana seems to be getting real traction.
Yes. It highlights DeFi, decentralized finance, NFTs, obviously Web3 gaming, and also decentralized social networks. Those seem to be the hotspots.
Okay. And does it give examples? Like what kind of projects are we talking about?
It does. It names a few representatives to give you a flavor. Phantom, which is a super popular wallet.
Use that one.
Jupiter, the exchange aggregator. Helium, doing the decentralized IoT thing.
Oh, yeah, D to PIM.
Exactly. And Mad Lads, that well-known NFT collection. Just examples,
Gotcha.
But the document also makes this observation, and this feels pretty significant for where Solana might be heading.
Mm-hmm.
It points to growing interest from institutional investors.
Ah, okay. Here's where it gets real interesting. Institutions. Are we talking big names?
Yeah, it mentions Grayscale, Franklin Templeton, Multicoin Capital,
Yeah.
as examples of firms engaging with or showing interest in Solana.
Wow, okay. That's not just crypto native funds then.
Exactly. And the document kind of frames that institutional attention as a key indicator.
Right.
It suggests interest is widening, beyond the early adopters, that bigger, maybe more traditional financial players are seriously looking at Solana.
Right, and potentially putting real capital into the ecosystem. That's a sign things are maybe maturing, getting more serious.
That's how the analysis seems to view it, a signal of the platform being seen through a, let's say, more mature investment lens.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Let's talk market side. Solana's price, SOL. It's been a real roller coaster, hasn't it, as this analysis lays out?
Oh, absolutely. A wild ride.
Yeah.
The document breaks it down into a few distinct periods. So back in 2020, launch phase, price was under $2.
Peanuts, basically. Then 2021 hit. That was a crazy year for all of crypto.
Huge year. And the analysis shows SOL just rocketing. It went from like $30 up to $250 in 2021.
Wow.
And that was tied directly to that massive DeFi and NFT boom, right? Solana caught that wave big time.
But then the tide went out again.
Yep. 2022 saw a really sharp drop. Price went under $15.
Ouch.
Yeah. The document points to the general market crash, obviously, but it specifically highlights the FTX collapse.
Ah, right, because FTX and Alameda were heavily involved with Solana.
Exactly. So that collapse hit Solana particularly hard. It's a stark reminder in the analysis of how external events, especially disasters like that, can just hammer a project's price.
Definitely. Okay, so fast forward, 2024, the analysis notes things started recovering.
Yeah, a period of like sustained recovery.
Yeah.
The price range for 2024 is listed as $60 to $110. Shows a bounce back quite a bit from those lows.
Okay.
And looking at 2025, which the document treats as its current time frame, the price is cited between $130 and $150.
Right.
And this period is described in the analysis as consolidation and continued technical expansion, so kind of steadying the ship and building.
And there's a technical analysis point in the source too, right? Supporting this positive vibe.
Yeah, it mentions that recent price action since late 2023 shows a clear upward trend. Notes the price getting above the 50-day and 200-day moving averages.
Which traders often see as a bullish sign.
Exactly. Suggesting, technically speaking, potential for more sustained growth, according to the source.
Okay, so building on that current picture, the document then looks ahead. It actually offers some value projections for the next 12 to 18 months?
It does. But it's careful to present them as three distinct scenarios. And importantly, it links each scenario to specific assumptions about the market and Solana itself.
Right, not just random numbers. Let's hear the scenarios.
Okay, first, the optimistic one. Here, the analysis suggests a potential price range of $250 to $350.
Oh, big jump. What needs to happen for that?
Well, the assumptions are high institutional adoption really kicking in, lots more dApp expansion on Solana, and, critically, continued technical stability. No major network outages.
Okay, so basically everything goes right.
Pretty much. Then there's the intermediate scenario. The price range there is estimated at $180 to $250.
Still decent growth.
Yeah, and the assumptions are more moderate growth for Solana, the broader market kind of consolidating. Basically, steady progress, nothing too crazy, good or bad.
Makes sense. And the flip side, the pessimistic view.
Right, the pessimistic scenario projects a price between $90 and $130, so potentially falling back from current levels.
And the assumptions driving that?
Things like a global economic downturn hitting markets hard, new or ongoing technical problems plaguing the Solana network itself.
Like more outages?
Exactly. Or potentially really restrictive regulations coming in that hurt crypto generally, or Solana specifically.
Okay, so it's crucial, like the document says, to remember these are scenarios tied to specific ifs. They show potential outcomes if those conditions happen, not guarantees.
Absolutely key to understand that. They're not price predictions in a vacuum.
Now, what I find really fascinating is how this analysis compares Solana to other blockchains. There's a comparison table, right? Puts things side by side.
Yeah, that comparison is super useful for context. Where does Solana actually fit in? So take Ethereum.
The big one.
Right. The document estimates Solana's TPS. Again, it's 65,000 plus the Ethereum's layer 1. Maybe 1530 TPS. Huge difference.
And the cost, we mentioned Solana's subpenny. Ethereum L1 can be dollars, right?
Yeah.
$210, the table says, sometimes more.
Exactly. Stark contrast on speed and cost for the base layer. But the table also shows where Ethereum has the edge currently.
Okay, like what?
Ecosystem diversity. Ethereum's is listed as very diversified and maturity is high. Solana's is diversified and medium.
Right, so Ethereum's been around longer, more battle-tested, bigger network effect.
That's the implication. More established.
Okay, what about others, like Avalanche? Is that compared?
Yep. Solana versus Avalanche.
Okay.
TPS still favors Solana heavily in the table. 65K plus versus 4.5K plus Barium. Avalanche's cost is low, under 10 cents, but still higher than Solana's sub-cent fee.
And maturity.
Both listed as medium maturity in this analysis.
Okay. And what about some of the even newer chains, like Aptos or Sui? They also talk speed.
They're grouped together in the table. Their estimated TPS is shown as less than 10,000, so quite a bit lower than Solana's 65K plus ETH.
Interesting. And maturity.
Crucially, the analysis puts Solana at medium maturity, while Aptos Sui are tagged as lowerly stage.
So Solana's further along the development and adoption curve compared to them, according to this source.
That's the picture the table paints. So, yeah, based purely on these numbers and the analysis, Solana looks really strong on raw speed and cost,
Yeah.
especially versus Ethereum L1.
It does. But that comparison also highlights it's not just about TPS, right? Maturity, ecosystem depth, they matter too. Ethereum's got that longevity.
Exactly. And you've got these other contenders. The landscape is complex. The document uses this comparison to kind of benchmark Solana's performance against the competition as it stands now.
Which brings us to a really important question. What could go wrong? What might hold Solana back? The analysis doesn't shy away from the challenges and risks, does it?
Not at all. It's quite direct about the hurdles, and one of the biggest ones it lists is operational stability.
The outages.
Right. It directly mentions those historical network interruptions Solana's had. And it stresses that completely fixing these, ensuring reliability, is non-negotiable. You need that trust for serious widespread use.
Yeah, those past outages definitely spooked people, developers, users. Reliability is baseline.
Absolutely. You can't build global systems on shaky ground. Another major challenge highlighted is, well, the whole question of real decentralization.
Okay. What's the issue there, according to the analysis?
It notes the ongoing criticism about sort of the concentration of power, specifically around the number and distribution of the nodes and validators that run the network.
Right. If too few entities control things, it raises questions about censorship resistance, control, core blockchain stuff.
Precisely. The analysis flags that as an ongoing concern. It also mentions the need for better education and outreach,
Meaning?
meaning making it easier for people to actually build on and use Solana. Better tools, more accessible documentation, user training, lowering the barrier to entry for more people.
Yeah, making complex tech easy to use is always a heavy lift.
For sure. And finally, the document really hammers home the competitive environment. Solana isn't alone out there.
Definitely not.
It needs to keep proving its worth, not just against other fast chains trying to grab market share, but also against Ethereum as it evolves, especially with all the layer 2 solutions popping up on Ethereum that are tackling its speed and cost problems.
Right. Ethereum isn't standing still, so Solana needs to keep innovating and differentiating.
Exactly. So the analysis basically says, tackling these challenges, stability, decentralization concerns, usability, competition, isn't just nice to have. It's fundamental to Solana's future growth and hitting those mass adoption goals.
Okay, so wrapping things up, the document finishes with some recommendations, right? Tailored for different groups involved with Solana.
Yeah, just a brief summary of suggestions. For investors, it suggests a cautious approach. Maybe entering the market gradually, using technical levels like support and resistance,
Right.
Acknowledging the volatility.
Sensible given the price swings we talked about. Pragmatic.
It seems so. For developers, the advice is pretty straightforward. Consider Solana if your project really needs that high speed, low cost, and scalability. Matches the tech specs, right?
Makes sense for certain use cases like high-frequency DeFi or maybe some types of games.
Potentially, yeah. Then for institutions, remember that growing interest.
Yeah.
The recommendation is basically keep a close eye on key developments. Things like how regulations are shaping up, progress on institutional-grade staking options for SOL, and the opportunities around tokenizing real-world assets on the platform.
Okay, all things that would directly impact how big regulated players could get involved safely and effectively.
Exactly. And lastly, for the researchers, the tech enthusiasts.
Like us?
Maybe.
Yeah.
The document suggests digging deeper into things like proof of history itself, really analyzing its implications for security, efficiency, overall network health. Keep scrutinizing the core tech.
So these recommendations kind of translate the analysis into actionable points, depending on how you might be engaging with Solana, investing, building, researching. So we've taken this deep dive through the lens of this strategic analysis of Solana. We've looked at the tech it highlights, that unique POH combo,
The expanding ecosystem built on top of it.
the wild ride of its market value, and where the analysis sees it now,
Those future scenarios, optimistic, pessimistic, and in between.
and how it stacks up against the competition according to their numbers.
And crucially, we spent time on those challenges the document flags. Stability, decentralization, competition, the big hurdles.
So when you put it all together, what's the takeaway message from this analysis? What picture does it paint?
Well, I think it presents Solana as undeniably a technically innovative platform. It has real strengths, that speed, making it a serious contender for like high-performance dApps.
Right. The ecosystem's growing. Market signals look somewhat positive recently.
But, and it's a big but, in the analysis, Solana is also at this critical point. It faces really significant unresolved challenges, especially proving consistent reliability, beating those outage concerns, and properly addressing the centralization questions. Those are fundamental trust issues in blockchain.
Yeah, I can't just brush those aside.
No. So the picture is, it's a network that's achieved a lot technically, gained real traction, but its long-term success, that dream of widespread adoption, really hinges on nailing these fundamental challenges.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty interesting, maybe provocative question to think about going forward.
Yeah.
Given Solana's very specific technical path, so focused on speed and cost, using things like proof of history, but also facing these big hurdles around stability and decentralization, can it actually achieve true global scale without compromising too much on that core blockchain ideal of decentralization?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? It's a tough balance to strike.
Yeah.
Speed versus decentralization versus security, the classic trilemma.
Exactly. How Solana navigates that trade-off, especially under pressure to perform and scale. That's going to be fascinating to watch.
Absolutely. One of the key storylines in the whole blockchain space for the next few years, I reckon.
Definitely something to keep mulling over as you watch this ecosystem evolve. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the sources provided.